The snow fell in thick curtains across the Wyoming mountains as Armand trudged through the forest, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He wasn't hunting for sport, never had been. Out here, 30 miles from the nearest town, hunting meant survival through the brutal winters. At 25, he'd chosen this solitary life deliberately, craving the silence that only wilderness could provide. The distress beacon changed everything. At first, Armand thought the pulsing blue light was sheet lightning, but lightning didn't hum with that crystalline frequency that made his teeth ache. He found the crater a quarter-mile from his cabin, a wound in the earth still smoking despite the snow. The craft embedded in frozen soil was like nothing he'd seen, even in government disclosure documents. Its hull shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist, shifting between silver and something his brain couldn't quite process. Two figures huddled near the wreckage. They were small, barely, reaching his chest with luminous skin that flickered between violet and pale blue. Their eyes were too large, their limbs too delicate, and they trembled violently in the sub-zero temperature. One had what looked like a broken arm, twisted at an impossible angle. The other clutched her sister protectively, and despite their alien features, Armand recognized terror when he saw it. "Easy," he murmured, approaching slowly with his hands visible. "I'm not going to hurt you," the uninjured one hissed, displaying small, sharp teeth. A warning, protection. Her sister whimpered, a sound that transcended species. Armand stripped off his heavy coat and approached again. This time, when he draped it around them both, neither resisted. Their skin was ice cold to the touch, and he knew hypothermia would kill them long before anything else. Getting them to his cabin took an hour of careful coaxing. The injured one, he'd later learn her name was Lyra, could barely walk. Her sister Sarah supported her with fierce determination. Inside, Armand stoked his wood stove to a roaring blaze and offered them warm broth. They drank hesitantly, their two large eyes never leaving his face. Over the following weeks, an unlikely bond formed. Armand's veterinary training, cut short by his desire for isolation, proved invaluable. He set Lyra's arm using improvised splints, and though their biology was different, the fundamentals of care transcended species. He learned their names through gestures and drawings. They learned his through careful mimicry of his speech. Sarah was the bold one, curious about everything in his cabin. She'd touch his books with reverence, run her luminous fingers along his rifle with fascination. Lyra was gentler, observant, often catching him with those enormous eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. They were children, he realized. Lost children impossibly far from home. 3 months passed before their people came. The rescue ship descended without fanfare on a clear March morning. The beings that emerged were taller, more imposing, but Armand recognized the same features in their faces. The reunion was tearful. If beings with bioluminescent skin could cry, and they could. Sarah and Lyra clung to figures who must have been their parents, but before they left, both sisters approached Armand. Sarah pressed something into his palm, a small crystal that pulsed with inner light. Lyra touched his chest right over his heart, and spoke in halting English. "We remember you." Then they were gone, and Armand was alone again with his mountains and his silence. 15 years passed like a long exhale. Armand was 40 now, weathered by mountain winters and summer suns. His beard had traces of silver, and his hands bore the scars of a life lived roughly but honestly. He'd never married, never even tried. The memory of 2 small alien girls who'd trusted him when they had no reason to had somehow filled the spaces where loneliness might have lived. The crystal they'd given him sat on his mantle, still pulsing its gentle rhythm. When the ship returned on a summer evening, Armand wasn't afraid. He'd somehow known they'd come back. 2 figures emerged, and his breath caught. They were no longer children. Sarah and Lyra had grown tall and graceful, their bioluminescence now controlled and elegant. They wore garments that seemed woven from starlight itself, and they moved with the confidence of adults who'd faced the universe and conquered it. "Armand," Sarah said, her English now flawless. She smiled, a very human expression on her alien features. "We told you we'd remember." Lyra stepped forward, and Armand saw tears in those enormous eyes. "You saved us when we were helpless. You showed us kindness when you had no obligation. You taught us that compassion isn't bound by species or appearance." "We've returned home," Sarah continued. "We've studied, grown, become ambassadors for our people. And we've learned your customs, your courtship rituals, your concept of partnership. Armand's heart hammered. Why are you telling me this? Lyra and Sarah exchanged a glance, then both approached him. Each took one of his weathered hands in theirs, skin that glowed softly against his calloused palms. Because among our people, Lyra said softly, when someone saves your life, they become responsible for your heart, and you are responsible for theirs. We've traveled the galaxy, Sarah added, met thousands of beings, seen wonders beyond description, but we never found anyone whose heart called to ours the way yours does. We're asking, Lyra said, her voice trembling with hope and fear, if you would consider a bond with us, not as the children you saved, but as the women who've loved you across 15 years and countless light years. Armand looked between them, these impossible, beautiful beings who'd crossed the vastness of space to offer him their hearts. He thought of his solitary life, his chosen isolation, and realized it had never been about avoiding connection. It had been about waiting for a connection that mattered. He squeezed both their hands and smiled. I think, he said quietly, I've been waiting for you two to come back since the day you left. Above them, stars blazed in the summer darkness, the same stars they'd crossed to find him again. And in a cabin in the Wyoming mountains, 3 hearts beat as one, proving that love recognized no boundaries, no distances, and no differences that truly mattered.